Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode. I am so delighted to be back with you and I have a wonderful guest with me this week, Ellen Carosa. She is a licensed vet tech. She is over in the US and she has founded Chris Griffey Memorial Feline Foundation. And she's going to talk to us all things feline and she's going to share with us her unique experience of losing her cats and talk about the grief that she's experienced. But Ellen, welcome. And also, you might know Ellen very well from on Instagram from the Cat LVT. So you've probably already been following her. But Ellen, welcome. I hope I've introduced you the correct way, but thank you for agreeing to come on this week.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate your time today, especially this evening. It's late for both of us.
It's great to connect with people across the pond, and I know it's hard to kind of schedule the right time, but it's I'm always so happy to like arrange these to like see each other face to face on Zoom, so it's really, really good. But tell us a little bit about yourself and like kind of what you do, and tell us a little bit about, your experience with cat loss really in your life.
All right. So I have been a veterinary technician for over 30 years now, which is like we're considered like once you hit like the 10, 15 year time frame, we're considered like more of the dinosaurs of veterinary medicine because typically technicians have a very short work lifespan. So being here for 30 years, you get to see a lot of things evolve in veterinary medicine. And you get to know your clients, especially. And the really cool thing about my career path is I have got to see clients bring in kittens and see them for their first appointment and then help that animal journey out into the next world when they pass away. So my experience is a little bit unique in certain aspects of veterinary medicine. However, I've had my fair share of pets and growing up. I was one of those kids that had a menagerie. My parents really never said no. We still have a lot of pets when I go visit my parents. We have pigs and chickens and stuff like that too. But we've always had like the household cats and it was multiple household cats. We've never had just one, and dogs and stuff like that too. However, in my home, we only tolerate cats because that's what I specialize in for the past 20 plus years. And, I have experienced my um, several sets of loss. Like when I first came down and moved to Virginia with my husband from New York, I came down with my very first cat of my own as an adult, which was 19 at the time. That was an adult. And we built our own little menagerie up. And then over the years, that menagerie passed away. And now we're into our second set of cats together. My daughter is going to be 22. So she grew up with like the first waxing and waning of the cats into like the second series. And, every pet loss has been definitely different for me, especially with the pet. However, I want to say, different levels of loss depending upon who the pet was. And, everybody's experienced my loss with Benedict, my white cat, 4 years ago. And I put it publicly out on social media because I wanted to, basically teach people what happened. And they all knew Benny for several years because I would post my adventures with him together. And then when I suddenly lost him, I felt that I needed to share that vulnerability as well because it made me more human to everybody. And I didn't realize the level of grief uh, that would come along with losing him. Like he literally was like my soul cat, in all honesty, and it broke me, and it still breaks me to this day to like think about him. And Benedict was my world. He was part of my Downton Tabbies, even though he wasn't part of the Downton Abbey, crew. It was Benedict Cumberbatch, and I absolutely love Benedict Cumberbatch. I mean, like his voice is amazing. So I'd think like my cat was talking to me. I'd always like think about it in Benedict
I love it.
Cumberbatch's voice.
Yeah.
But like he was just he's just so incredibly special, and it's like one of those animals that you can't describe describe them to somebody else because that unique relationship you have with them is just so crazy intimate that like that cat is like your world. They completely get you. And at the end of the day, you come home from work and it can be the worst day in the world, but like that cat, or do slow blink at you and you're like, my day is so much better. But it makes you wonder, like, why is this animal so special? Like, why do I have this connection?
Mm.
And when you lose something like that, you literally lose a huge portion of yourself. And I feel like I have not recouped that portion, and I probably never will recoup that portion of myself.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting adventure since he has passed away
Hmm.
because I have obtained more cats after he was gone because
Mm.
I felt like I needed to. So that's where I am now, as far as, the pets in my household and, dealing with some loss there.
Hmm. But you feel Benny was like the most intense, kind of most difficult loss that you've kind of experienced with a cat, like from
Oh
thinking,
yeah,
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
sure. For
Hmm.
sure. Even like I can remember as a kid, like all of the animals I've had, I remember growing up with the farm cats, it was Stinky, it was Kitty Cat, it was Buddy, it was Clarissa, and they were all wonderful cats. And I remember every single one of them when they passed away, it was like, devastating in a way. And then when I had my first crew of cats down here, it was Ajax, who was another white cat. I have a thing for white cats. Teddy, who was probably one of my first hot mess express cats that I've ever had. And he had a heart disease called pentology of Fallot, where there's 5 different things structurally wrong with the heart.
Mm.
And the cardiologists are like, good luck. I hope this cat lives a long, happy life. Most don't. But he lived 7.5 years under the care of a cardiologist.
Mm.
Had Magrat Garlic, named her after one of the characters from Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels. I love Terry Pratchett. And I had Coconut and I had Goblin. And each one of those cats, when they passed away, it was a intense level of hurt.
Mm.
Um, and then I felt like after they left, I needed my own set of kittens again. And my husband's like, I'm not ready for kittens. Goblin is 21 years old. We can't do this to this cat.
Mm.
And working in the clinic, we always had rescue groups coming in giving us kittens. And they dropped off 6 hot mess express kittens.
Six.
And one of them was white. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this cat just spoke to me.
Mm.
And his sister Mary was also white, but she had like brown spots on her and she was cross-eyed and she had blue eyes. And I'm like, I need these kittens. My husband's
Mm.
like, you're not allowed to have these kittens unless the carpets get replaced because your last cats destroyed the carpets. So I replaced the floors and I still brought these kittens home. And I
Compromise.
built this different level of bonding that
Mm.
I didn't expect, I guess. Like it was more intense because now I felt like these were truly just my cats.
Hmm.
And I lost Mary to FIP a few months later, unfortunately, which, you know, still a little angry about, only because, the drug shortly came out not too long after,
Okay.
to
Yeah.
start treatment for it and everything. And had Benny all by himself for a little while before I got him a buddy, Michelle Docker cat. Now she lives with him. And she has now, she's still living. She's ticking away at 10 years old.
Mm.
Um, but the level of a relationship I had with them was much, much deeper. And it only got very deep with Benny. And it was to
Mhm.
the point that I don't know. I'm probably some people online when you looked at it probably were like a little unhealthy looking. However, I didn't think that whatsoever. And it was just so intense, and it's just really hard to describe
Mm.
um, that kind of relationship on how you build that with an animal,
Hmm.
and then try to figure out why this one is so much more different, than everybody else. But yeah, I mean, it's been a strange thing to navigate. I'll admit that. Um,
Hmm.
and you know, looking back at it, there's a lot of things that I'm still angry about his case because he did die suddenly from heart disease, even though I knew he had heart disease.
Okay.
Um, so there was a lot of little things there that being in veterinary medicine, that is that shoulda, coulda, woulda
Mm.
scenario with grief. Like, what could I have done better? What could
Mm.
have been done better? And I lost him during COVID.
Okay.
So um, when he threw his blood clot, I just saw the cardiologist a couple weeks before. They're like, everything looks great. Keep him on his medicine, no problems there. And then suddenly one morning he's limping and his foot is cold. And, you run into a problem that you can't get the help that you need. And cardiology was like, sorry, he's probably going to throw another clot again. He's a euthanasia case. And then you're stuck with the scenario that you have to make a sudden decision that you have to euthanize your best friend, which basically what it felt like, um, only because you can't get the help. Every single emergency clinic is completely booked. So they can't even go for, therapeutics, even if we could treat him. And I felt let down,
Yeah.
for sure. And it was like one of those sudden decisions that you had to make, to let your pet go. So I knew exactly how my clients feel when they
Mm.
go through the same situation as we do. And it was really disappointing and it was hurtful. And it kind of like kicked me in the ass a little bit to um, appreciate more what I do for a living and
Mhm.
look at the way that my clients view a lot of things. And I think that's really helped shape me, like as a
Mm.
technician in a way. Um, Only because you put yourself in their
Your
shoes.
shoes.
And ever since he passed away, um, I look at everything that way now.
Mm.
Like, it's just not about me anymore and me saving animals and doing all of this. It's like I always think about the person in front of me or the animal in front of me and how that person's going to feel. And like my advocacy has become even stronger for a lot of things. Um,
Mhm.
but it's been a different challenge. Definitely after losing him and Mary, for sure. Mary wasn't, it was a very disappointing loss. But I really didn't get to build that relationship with her. And I think my relationship just got even deeper with him
With
because I
him, yeah.
lost her.
Hmm.
And I put all of my focus and my stress and everything else like onto him. And he became like my little stress ball at the end of the day. That's what I went for and looked for
Mm.
to kind of like, you know, reduce my level of anxiety and stress at
Hmm.
home. So
Yeah,
that's the story of them.
that's it's especially to lose him during COVID and like you say, so suddenly and because you have the knowledge that you have, you must have felt that level of kind of feeling out of control of the situation that, you weren't getting maybe the care that you wanted or you felt let down and disappointed, like you said. And do you feel when you mentioned earlier about parts of the relationship was unhealthy, do you mean that you relied on him so much, like as that stress ball? Is that kind of like that
Yeah.
was,
I mean,
yeah,
I completely relied upon that cat. Like
yeah.
it's like one of those things like you don't open up to your friends or your family. It's
Hmm.
like you being with that animal was that like end of the day therapy because you knew that that animal was going to listen to you more than
Hmm.
everybody else around you because they're like, I'm done listening about your day in vet med. It's gross. I don't want to hear about it. It's sad, whatever.
Mm.
um or it turned into like if you talk to your family and friends, they want to know about their pets and what they can do, and it turns into like all of this free service, and you're like, I
Yes,
just
yes,
left
yes.
work.
Okay.
So it was like one of those things that that was my little world that I could decompress at the end of the day, and all I had
Mm.
to do was when I walked in the door at home was go upstairs, and he was always in his bed, and all I had to do was touch him, and he would turn around and do this little and they
Oh.
wake up and they're like, oh, you're here. And he would do that every single day. Like all I
Mm.
had to do was walk in the room and talk to him, and he'd just turn around and burble at me. And I was like, oh, he was waiting for me the whole day. My daughter would send me photos of him, like he's still waiting for you in his spot.
Mm.
So um, it was, one
So
of those
he
relationships
melted
that
it.
you
Mm.
see meant it 100%.
Yeah.
And you see it all the time, like online now, like you watch people's relationships with their pets, and it's like, yeah, I get it. Like
Mm.
they have the same level of intense love for that animal like I did.
Mm,
So I'm never going to feel bad about that. But boy, I'm still angry
mm.
and let down and disappointed about how the whole situation went down for sure. For sure. And this is Ambrose. This is my other white cat that just jumped up behind me. So,
Oh, it's gorgeous.
yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been through a lot with Benny, and when you were sharing with me about how it's kind of changed your outlook then going forward for like putting you in your client's shoes, like
Mhm.
it sounds like you've learned a lot from that relationship with Benny, and do you feel that because maybe you faced so much challenges together and he nearly melted your stress away when you came home that like how did that kind of if you have any specific examples, how did you kind of bring that into the relationships with your clients? Like how do you feel that it kind of helped you to navigate maybe euthanasia appointments or end of life discussions with your clients?
Right. So, you know, gosh, the euthanasia and end of life is always like one of those really difficult situations because
Mm,
you have to look at the person of going, do you understand what's happening? And nine
mhm,
times out of 10, they do. But when you have a pet and you're going through euthanasia, a good portion of the time, it's nothing that's scheduled, right?
mm,
Um, and it's usually something on an emergent basis because the cat has either gotten sick rather quickly or we know the cat's been sick for a while and that person has allowed the cat to decompensate to a point beyond being able to care for, and then they come in and they expect us to do a Hail Mary on the cat, and we're like, there's no point of return. um, you wind up with the cats that have the clients that it's just a cat, like, I'm here to euthanize it, bye, and they leave it behind, and it makes you wonder what their level of thinking is. Like, is it just a cat, or is that how that they're coping with
mm,
this cat's level of death? Because a lot of people don't like to be vulnerable at that point in time and actually
mhm,
grieve in front of you because it can be embarrassing.
mm,
We get that. So usually when we are performing that, we'll go in and we'll simply ask, like, do you understand the process of euthanasia? And if you
mhm,
don't, can I explain it to you on what we are going to be doing?
mhm,
Because a lot of people think like we are putting the cat to sleep and it's just going to sleep. And it's like, no, we are actually going to actively stop your cat's heart. We're
mhm,
going to stop it from breathing. Your pet is going to die today,
mhm,
and it can be very hard for a lot of people to see, their pet awake and moving around and looking at them and purring to, a few moments later with this little body that suddenly the life is just gone from it. And it's visibly different
mhm,
when they do pass, like the body just changes in a way that it's very hard to describe, that when you actually see that little soul just is gone, and the body is physically dead, and then that animal is no longer there. And watching them, either be openly honest and grieve in front of you and you give them as much time as you need, or you know they just pass the animal to you and they need to get up and walk out because they don't want to process it in front of you that way. um, but there's usually like a lot of questions, like, what can I do for you? How can I make you feel more comfortable? Do you want to be present? Do you not want to be present? Or how far of being present do you want to be? Do you just want to be to the part where we sedate your pet and they're not aware of anything and we will take them away from you and finish it somewhere else?
mhm,
um, or finish it in the room after you go ahead and leave?
mhm,
um, so there's a lot of the process to it, and it's more involved than what people think that they're allowed to be involved in.
mhm,
Just ask a lot of questions, because this is like a final thing that we are doing and providing the service for. And there are tons and tons of resources for it now, such as like Lap of Love. There are veterinary social workers that are available to help people navigate through all of this, to kind of
mhm,
talk about it. um, However, one thing that's not talked about enough of is when we have these animals with severe comorbidities and illnesses, is like, we need to talk about the end stage earlier rather than later, right? Say we know your pet is at this stage of their disease, and we know that maybe we only have a few weeks, maybe a few months. We need to start thinking about things. We need to be providing you with um, a quality chart of like how is their day going? You
Mhm.
know, are we having a good day, somewhat good day, a bad day? And we need to help you make a decision so you
Mhm.
don't come up to a point that now it's a crisis at the
Mhm.
very end of the day, or you wake up in the middle of the night and it's a crisis mode, or the pet has passed away on its own.
Mhm.
So there's a whole bunch of things that you do need to talk about to a client, but seeing and helping perform, I mean, thousands of euthanasias over 30 years. Every single one of them is unique, every
Mhm.
single one. However, a lot of people have very similar patterns
Mhm.
on how, you know, they grieve and they cope, and the level of participation
Mhm.
that they want, or a level of participation that they don't know that they are allowed to participate with.
Okay.
And you're allowed to participate in all of it when it comes to the euthanasia of your pet. You just need to be willing to be um, wanting to ask. You know, and
Mhm.
a lot of people don't think they have that permission to ask, and you absolutely do. Like,
Mhm.
you are allowed to participate 100% with your pet's passing, and you should, you know,
Yes.
even to the point of like wanting to do footprints before going home,
Mhm.
asking for a hair sample, or saying like, I really need a good 20 to 30 minutes with my animal before leaving it behind. Because
Mhm.
many times people do feel rushed
Mhm.
during a euthanasia because, you know, the doctor's done doing their portion.
Mhm.
They got to go do the next appointment, and you might have staff peeking in the door every 20 minutes going like, oh, they're still in there. I gotta, we gotta clean up. We need this room for somebody else. So, it's one of those situations that like you have to take a step back and be like, no, this is a hard stop. This room is done until this client is done
Mhm.
with their animal, and then we can move in.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of stuff that goes into the euthanasia process and aftercare and dealing with the clients, on multiple aspects. And you really have to kind of like really take a step back and be like, it is not about the schedule. It is about this person and the family and the pet in that room. And so
Mhm.
you really have to rein it in, um, and understand, where everybody's coming from. And I feel like veterinary medicine is doing a much better job
Mhm.
at it now, since there's so much ability to have these resources on hospice care, palliative care, and a lot of the end of life services that are provided in the home situation for
Mhm.
clients now. You get to have that private time, and even allowing the other pets in the household to grieve instead of them coming home with an empty cat carrier or
Mhm.
an empty leash and collar, and the other pets are like, where's so and so, like, what
Mhm.
the hell's going on? And now you're dealing with an animal that you're mourning for, and
Mhm.
this animal's mourning for its friend because he simply doesn't know where that friend is because they didn't get to say goodbye either.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there is a whole bunch of stuff that we really have to take in consideration and think about,
Mm.
in veterinary medicine when we're dealing with our clients and pet loss in general.
Mhm. I think it's so valid, and it's lovely to hear the way you describe it. There's so much compassion there, and I suppose just to note that, from my perspective or my experience, or experience of me kind of supporting my clients, things in Ireland and maybe some parts of Europe aren't as advanced with the resources and the help. And particularly in Ireland, I know there might be some people that experience a rushed scenario, and there aren't such resources here yet, and we would hope that that would eventually come to our shores. But things are getting better slowly. But it's great to hear what you guys are offering clients across the pond, and hopefully know that will advance and come over here eventually, which is good to hear. But I suppose, if you feel, if somebody listening feels that they're going to their clinic and they're feeling very dismissed about end of life and trying to plan everything that you've kind of spoken about, Do you feel that would you advise them to go to another clinic, maybe that they would offer more supportive services, or how would somebody navigate that from your experience, I guess?
Right. So, I have always been very lucky to be at a clinic that we took high priority in
Hmm.
all of our euthanasia cases because we would always put ourselves in the perspective of that client. Like, I would
Hmm.
never want this to happen to me. I'm not going to give you that experience.
Hmm.
However, yeah, you can read online about a lot of experiences that you feel like, I was in there, I only had 20 minutes because that's all they could fit me in for. And now you don't have that chance to say goodbye, get a chance to mourn really quickly.
Hmm.
And now you got a $400 or $500 bill you have to pay because cremation is probably included and all
Hmm.
this stuff. And plus, you have to make this choice. Like they come walking in the room with the
Yes.
estimate, and they're like, okay, today we're going to be euthanizing Fluffy. Do you want package A, which is general cremation, package B, which is private cremation, or C, are you going to take the animal home with you? And meanwhile, this animal could still be alive
Yeah.
as you're holding it or in distress or something. And you're like, oh, like, I don't know. Well, you need
Hmm.
to pick one so we can proceed,
Hmm.
and then have to sign all of this stuff. So you really have to like take it back and feel like, if this is not the experience you want, and that your pet is in the process of being in palliative care or hospice care, and that eventually this pet is going to be dying, maybe having that home service would be better for you
Hmm.
because you can schedule the day, you can plan out what you're going to be doing, you can start doing those um, bucket lists that a lot of people will do. Like, today we're going to go to the beach. Today we're just going to sit outside. Today we're going to make footprints, and kind of like build up to your end ultimately. And it kind of helps you with the grieving process as well. But it also prevents you from being sidetracked and feeling like you're under pressure to
Yeah.
make a decision suddenly. So if
Mm.
you're not that kind of a person that's, be prepared for something like this to potentially happen to you, yeah, go ahead and look into the home services
Mm.
or ask your friends to be like, who do you use? Did you have a really good experience? Do you think they would be willing to see me
Mm.
for euthanasia? Because some places feel like if I don't have a client patient relationship with you, we're not going to provide you with the service. So
Okay.
you can run into those problems
Mm.
on this side as well. I'm not sure how it is over
Mm.
where you are, but a lot of our clinics are very, if you're not a client and a patient with us, like we have to start from the beginning and then
Yes.
go ahead and provide you with that service. There are some clinics that will still do it no matter what, but a lot of them tend to have their very set rules in
Okay.
how they're going to proceed with certain things.
Hmm.
But definitely, I mean, the home services are fantastic, and it really does give that person that opportunity to um, make a lot of end of life
Yeah.
choices that they need to if they need that additional time.
Hmm.
And we refer them all the time to a lot of our clients. I had one client
Hmm.
that I was working with. She was an older lady, like in her 80s, and her cat was 17 and she had like an intestinal mass. And we knew, every single week she came in for her medications and stuff that, hey, how is she doing? Is she progressing? And, she started to progress sooner rather than later what the owner thought. And
Hmm.
finally she called and she was like, I think today is the day. All right, no problem. I'm going to fit you in no matter what.
Hmm.
I have a room ready for you. We even have like, a sympathy suite that we put the actual person and
Oh,
their
that's
pet in there, and it
lovely.
has like a couch and everything. So it's like done up like a living room, like your home.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like you're in like in a cold, veterinary office.
Mm.
And then she was like, never mind, she's eating. Okay, no problem. And this went on for a couple times.
Hmm.
And then finally she was like, Ellen, I really think I need to do this because now she's eliminating in the house and
Mm.
it's very hard on me. And it's like, you do not have to explain anything. We know exactly what you've been going through.
Mm.
And she goes, I really love you guys, but I don't want her to be euthanized at the clinic because she gets so stressed out every single time she comes. No problem. Let me provide you with two services. And she did. She had the service done at
Hmm.
home and she said it went fantastic.
Mm.
And she, appreciated our relationship I had with her, like for the past year of helping her navigate through all of this. And she said it really made her feel a lot better that she was able to do something like that at home for the cat versus making that cat's last moments really stressful, like
Hmm.
in a veterinary hospital. So there are options out there.
Hmm.
Um, you know, you don't have to do the researching on your own. Just ask the clinic. We're happy to provide those resources for
Hmm.
you because the last thing we want to do is force you
Hmm.
with a service that you're not ready for.
Hmm.
So
No,
it really depends. It's really person dependent.
I'm sure so many people listening will find that advice really, really helpful and maybe even take a bit of weight off their shoulders because obviously when you're going through it, you've so many questions. You're so concerned about your cat. You're so concerned about, when and how, and you just need advice and that kind of stuff. So it's great to have that option as well, which is a brilliant service. I would love to touch a little bit more about your relationship with Benny and I suppose really get your insight as to how you feel Benny kind of enhanced your life or any valuable lessons that he taught you or his quirks. Tell us a little bit more about his personality because I'd love to know.
Right. So we called Benny the Pontiff.
Oh.
Um, because he would put his paw on every single little kitten's head that came into the home. And we foster a lot, and we
Mhm.
call it the Benny blessings.
Oh.
And he just was like one of those male cats that really, really loved kittens. I mean, absolutely loved kittens. And he would clean them and he would raise them, and we would have these perfectly wonderful little kittens.
Mm.
And so everybody online knew him as the Pontiff, and the Benny blessings and everything. And over time, as his heart disease progressed, you could see him like he still loved his babies, but he definitely slowed down a little bit.
Mm.
But that was his thing, watching him raise these little kittens like they were his own. And he came from a rather large litter. So I always thought, like, oh, maybe he was really one of those super social cats that really like, you know, a bigger social ring of
Mhm.
cats around him the entire time. But watching him be like one of those cats that was very nurturing, and very gentle, like we always called him the gentle creature all the
Mm.
time. And it was just like super sweet. And that became his thing. And online, I'd be like, Benny has some new babies. Let's see if he's going to be doing a blessing. And of course, he would come over and lick the baby's head and put his
Oh.
paw on their head, or, any other, kitten that would come into the household. We like, oh, kind of like Groundhog Day. If the
Yeah.
groundhog going to see his shadows, like, is Benny going to do his blessing? And sure enough, it was flawless. He did it, every single time.
That's adorable.
And I don't have that now, like in
Yeah.
my home with like my new cats. Like they don't do that. They don't have that level of um, wanting to participate
Mm.
as like that surrogate mom that Benny
Mm.
did, and I really miss that. My kittens still get fantastic, socialization from the other cats. They all learn how to be cats,
Mm.
but it's definitely not as intense and loving
Mm.
as Benny did. And I definitely miss that in the household for sure.
Mm. That's absolutely adorable. I think it's just a quirk. It's just an unique personality little trait
Mm-hmm.
probably that he had that I can imagine that you miss that a lot. That must be hard to kind of, think that it's just not happening anymore in your life. But I appreciate you sharing that because I can imagine that that's super special for you. Um, but I suppose the impact that he's had on your life, has he helped you to kind of create new bonds with like the fosters and the new cats that you've had in your life since? Or has that kind of helped you, or have you found confidence to be like an amazing cat mom after the relationship with him?
Well, I definitely feel like he's sent me my next cat.
Ah,
Um,
yeah.
and I wanted another white cat. And my husband's like, please stop getting white cats. They all die from heart disease. Just stop it. And I was like, no, I have to have a white cat. I love white cats. And
Mm.
I was like, I want a new cat and I want a new cat soon. And meanwhile, you have a lot of people that will always tell you, you're replacing that one that just passed away. And I never looked at it that way. I always looked at it as giving somebody else a home that they don't have.
Mm.
Um, and I also need to fulfill, something that's missing for me. Like I feel like I needed to have something else to nurture
Mm.
on a different level. And not too long after Benny passed, I had one of my friends at the shelter say, we got this litter of kittens in, and one of them's white. And they sent me the photo, and I was like, oh my gosh, I, I'll take all of them, all of them.
Mm.
And Benny passed away April 2nd, and Ambrose was apparently born April 5th. So I kind of was like, oh, it's a sign he was reincarnated, kind of there. And I got the kittens in May.
Mm.
Um, because apparently that's when the shelter obtained them from the person that they were being relinquished by. Had them for a couple of days, and I jetted off to Mexico for a week with my sister because my sister's like, "Let me take you on a trip since Benny passed away." So we went away to Mexico to celebrate the passing of my cat. Left my family, my husband and my daughter, with all these kittens to take care of.
Oh.
Came back and started bonding with them again.
Mm.
And there were little quirks that Ambrose did that were very similar to Benny. So I kept sitting there going, oh, please, like, please be a reincarnation of some sort with him.
Mm.
Turns out that's not true. He does have some like funny, like little quirks here and there that I was like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe there's like maybe a little bit of touch of Benny in there, but definitely, Benny would never do that because Benny was like so
Mm.
much more better behaved than you are. And the personalities are just like, completely different.
Mm.
Um, and then not long after that, like a year later, I wound up getting Noggin, which is my Abyssinian, my one-eyed Abyssinian that I have. And I feel like he has given me a different
Mm.
purpose,
Okay.
as much as like almost on a level of what Benny provided for me.
Hmm.
Um, Meanwhile, here I was hoping that Ambrose would do that. And I love Ambrose to death. He's like one of my snuggle buddies. But Noggin definitely has um, a different personality type, and he is adventurous, and I don't know if it scratches that itch in my brain the same way
Mm.
that Benedict did.
Mm.
Um, and so it's very hard to describe that feeling, but it's almost like, when you eat something really good and your brain goes, oh, this is what I needed.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I get with Noggin. In a very similar sense that I do or I did with Benny for
Mm.
sure. Um,
I can see
but
all the adventures you go on your socials with Noggin.
oh, he
It's
loves
amazing.
going on adventures.
He's
And,
gorgeous, yeah.
Benny used to love to go outside on walks all the time. He walked on a leash. We'd walk in the woods every single day after work and stuff like that.
Hmm.
That was like my thing.
Mm.
And Noggin's like, I love car rides. I love going to Starbucks or, to any drive-through that's going to give me some sort of whipped cream cup. Like I'm there. Loves going on long car rides. He loves meeting people the same way Benny did. When I used to walk Benny around the neighborhood in his stroller and in the woods, all the little kids after school knew us and they'd come
Mm.
running over to say hi to Benny and, say hi to me. Um, and, Noggin does not tolerate that level of intense children, but he's very good in public spaces like at conventions and stuff like that. But when we're out and about, he's all about paying attention to other stuff, and then he gets a little discombobulated and overstimulated by other things.
Hmm.
Um, but he definitely fulfills that niche that Benny provided for me in very specific ways, and then Ambrose provides them in other ways
In
as
other
well. Like
ways.
he's my white snuggly cat that I would remember, snuggling up with every single night or laying on my chest.
Hmm.
Because Noggin doesn't do that. Noggin is very different. So they both provide, you know, ways of fulfilling and
Mm.
filling that need that I I actually needed myself to heal a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, However, I can still look up at a picture of Benny any day, and the tears will just come
Mm.
right back because he's not there,
Mm,
and I still miss him, versus having to navigate life like without him.
hmm
So it's been different in a way, and it's been nice to have these other cats and stuff like that. It's definitely has made me, evolve, more as a person for
mm.
sure. Um, Maybe in ways like I wasn't ready for, but sometimes you're not ready to evolve and you just need a swift kick in the ass, and that's when it happens and you have to grow up, unfortunately.
Mm. No, I can totally hear you on that. I wonder if you don't mind me asking, when Benny passed away and it was like the weeks following that or the months following that, did you reach out for support, like family, friends, support groups? How did you begin to kind of process that loss? Like, just for listeners listening, did you have certain books, podcasts? What helped you that might be helpful for others, maybe?
So, I spoke to my friends a lot.
Hmm.
I'm not that kind of person that goes and seeks out professional help because I'm just stubborn that way. Did a ton of just, you know, curling up in a ball and crying.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Wondering like, what am I going to do? Trying to keep myself more occupied with work. I was like one of those people that, you're one of those overachievers and overworkers. And so I
Hmm.
just made myself work harder just to fill the time. So I didn't have to be mentally present to think about specific things. Um, and, the pain just, it never went away. It just becomes like more distant.
Hmm.
Um, but having my other cats and giving me more focus and purpose, especially if it's like a particularly hard case like Noggin, like his mom licked the whole entire top of his head off, like she scalped him.
Hmm.
And it was like 8 weeks of really intense care and therapy on his part, but that kept me focused and busy. And it allowed me to bond with him, that it was a bond that I needed in order to like
Hmm.
push me past um, Benny's loss for sure. So I basically, maybe the cats are like my therapy,
Hmm.
versus, another human, because humans only listen for so much and they can only provide you with, so much patting on the head and validity of like
Hmm.
how you feel. And then they're like, well, let me send you home with some homework on, reflecting back on life. And you can be like, I'm not into that. Don't even give me homework because I'm not going to do it. I'm not that kind of person.
Hmm.
However, there are a lot of people out there that need that
Yes, yeah.
structure.
Hmm.
Like, go home, write down how you feel, go home and make yourself a picture board, go home and write a poem or a song or whatever. Everybody's different how they do it. I compartmentalize inward, and I
Hmm.
have to work through all of this anger and stuff and make myself overwork and overthink
Hmm.
and put my anger and energy into another living creature,
Hmm.
and then magically heal it, and then be like, ta-da, I did it. And then you get this rush of like, I'm good.
Hmm. You do a lot of
So it
inner work yourself. So
inner
that's,
work
yeah,
for
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure, for sure. And I like, I'm not gonna like discredit like the use of like some psychedelics as well to kind of like give you like 10 years of therapy in like, 6 hours. I will completely admit, doing some of that definitely helped as well. And it's made me, perceive life very, very differently. And I will say I'm a completely different person because of being allowed to have those moments of different reality, of like perceiving life and appreciating things much, much more than I
Hmm.
have in the past, and taking a lot of things for granted.
Hmm.
So, there's a lot
Hmm.
to, navigating grief for everybody, and everybody's not the same for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really important point that how you describe your process of getting through your grief might have worked for you, and that's amazing. But for somebody else, I suppose with the overworking and things like that, maybe that's not something that works for them. They might want to engage in community or, like talk to a professional and so on. So there's definitely different levels. And I think it's important to mention, the two sides of the coin really for people listening, that there isn't just one set way to process it. But I appreciate you sharing, how you navigated it, because it's totally a roller coaster for people and it can go any direction, and it's whatever path you feel comfortable with, I suppose, really. But I suppose, have you any advice for people listening who are maybe currently caring for a cat like that has maybe a terminal illness, or an elderly cat nearing the end of its life? And I know you mentioned about the planning with their clinic and their vet techs and everything in the vets, but maybe just personally at home, is there anything that you've done previous that might be helpful that you haven't touched on yet?
Right. So the main things is accepting the fact that your pet is going to pass eventually. You have to just accept that, like, all of us are going to die at some point in time.
Mhm.
Um, Creating that bucket list, if you're that kind of person, like, today we're going to do this, tomorrow we're going to do this, knowing how long you have and having that discussion with your veterinarian helps you plan things out a lot better and help you plan your life. You make sure maybe the next 2 months that your pet is sick and they've given you, like, we only got like a couple of months here. Well, maybe you spend more quality time with that pet. Maybe
Mhm.
you make yourself less busy and more present with your animal so you can maintain that bond. Um, Take lots of pictures, have a photo shoot done, create some wonderful memorabilia. There's nothing wrong with, doing something that helps you grieve. Okay. You really shouldn't be embarrassed by it. You really shouldn't be concerned with what family and friends might think of you wanting an
Mhm.
elaborate photo shoot of you and your pet together. That's not their business. That's not their pet. It's not you. That's not their relationship. This is your relationship with your animal.
Mhm.
Um, and just being open and honest on what you would like from your veterinarian, because the
Mhm.
more information that you give to us on what you expect when it comes to the end of life process for your cat, the better we can help you during the appointment time. Like, I really want my pet to be cremated, but I want this specific urn instead of the urn that it usually comes with the package. Okay, no problem. Let's pick that out ahead of time and have everything ready to go.
Mhm.
Um, I would like to bring my other cat with me, or I would like to bring my other dog with me, or I would like to have like a couple of other family members and think, no problem. Let's make that happen.
Mhm.
So having those plans in place, and knowing what you want ahead of time lets everybody else around you support you in that. But
Mhm.
know that, like, your pet and the relationship that you have with them is your own personal unique relationship. Nobody can change that for you, and you shouldn't be persuaded or made feel bad, on the level of the relationship that you have with that animal, and what you want at the end for it, because it's not their grief, it's your grief story.
Mhm.
And you really should have the support for that. If the the family and friends really care about you,
Mm.
you really should have that.
Yeah, definitely. And people deserve that. They deserve to kind of
Oh
have
yeah.
their grief story just kind of the way that they want it, and to the best of the ability that it can be done, of course. But I think that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Ellen. Um, I have kept you long enough, but I really appreciate the time that you've given to be here with me and record this podcast. I know that so many people listening will have so many takeaways from it, and leave a comment under this episode if you've enjoyed it, or your takeaways or your feedback. We'd love to read them. And Ellen, where can people find you? Have you multiple socials, or where are you more active? Mostly Instagram?
Um, Mostly
Yeah.
Instagram. I really don't have the capacity to, I guess, do like TikTok and all that kind of stuff. I can't dance for my life. So you'll find me on Instagram at the cat LVT, where I like post a lot of my photos of me, my cats, our adventures, my
Mm,
quirky sense of humor. It's cross-posted into Facebook as well.
mm.
And you can also find us at criticalkittens.org if you want to see what the Chris Griffey Memorial Feline Foundation does. You can take a look at us there, see the cats that we have for adoption, the resources that we provide publicly. And we're happy to help anybody out there. So that's where you can find me in a nutshell. And sometimes on the lecturing floor, or writing for veterinary novels and guidelines for a bunch of other groups. So that's where you
Wow,
can find me.
very busy. Amazing. Thank you, Ellen. And
You're
if you've
welcome. Thank you.
thank you everyone who was listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We would be very appreciative of it. And until next time, take care.